Welcome back to the first team. DeLeone and Ryan Roberts. We're doing our first scouting report episode of Summer Scouting. If you recall from last summer, we're going to dive deep on the top players at each position group so you know, heading into the college football season, who the best players are in the country. And then you're all caught up and you're ahead of your buddies on who you need to know for the 2025 NFL Draft. We're getting you ready early, and we're starting off with two very elite defensive tackle prospects. That being, by the way, so I did defensive tackles for college football on Rufino and Joe.
Oh, I heard it.
Deone
I too
or
did.
Deone Walker?
I think it's Deone Walker. I think it's Deone.
Okay, this is Jalen Polk all over again, because phonetically,
Jalen
one would
Polk,
say,
dude.
but there's an apostrophe. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to him, but phonetically, if I'm just going off of just general English, the apostrophe would be apostrophe Lynn.
Joe.
So
Joe.
It's Deone.
Joe.
You think it's Deone?
Yes, I think it's Deone Buchanan.
Okay.
Deone Buchanan. Deone Walker. Deone Walker. I believe that's how it's pronounced.
We're gonna go with that.
Joe. I would just like to say, man, stop trying to master the English language, okay? As a former English literature major, okay?
What are you talking about? Like we're not talking into microphones. What? No.
I'm just
cutting
saying,
you off
man.
right there. No,
I'm just saying, American,
your whole
I literally
educational
hardest
Yes.
class I ever had in college was an American English grammar class. You know why, Joe? Because there's a million rules to follow, except they lead it off by saying, well, there's 17 rules that you don't follow, right? That there's loopholes in the English language. That's my whole point, is that it's an ass backwards language is my whole point. So that's why it's so hard to learn for people.
Good. I'm going to try my hardest to do it correctly. Deone Walker and Mason Graham from Michigan are the two guys that we're going to be talking about.
Right.
Ryan, I'm going to start us off here with Deone Walker, 6'6", 348 pounds, listed on the Kentucky football
no
website.
chance he's only 348. No chance he's 348.
Okay, so we think that he's bigger. Apparently, former offensive lineman. He's built like an offensive lineman. Plays like a power forward. This is an enormous human being. To talk about his strengths first, he is so light-footed for a guy that we think might be 360 pounds. I have not seen a guy move this quickly and burst that easily for his size. He is a great pass rusher. He is a haul to move, but it is rare to see a guy like this that can pass rush and that can create space for himself as easily as he can, because normally we get the Devondre Sweats that are just big, barreling bodies that just try to go in a straight line, which eventually does not work on every single rep.
He's got a fascinating background, man. Just to kind of highlight that for a second. He's actually a Detroit, Michigan guy. He went to Cass Tech. You don't get too many Cass Tech guys going out to University of Kentucky, but he had scholarships to basically all the SEC schools. Georgia was one of his finalists, right? So he was a very heavily wanted player. And you mentioned why, right? You just don't see too many guys 6'6", 350 plus pounds more than likely, and move as giftedly as he did. He is what I feel like, and this is going to be a big statement because I'm about to talk about a guy that went top 15 in his draft. Yeah. He's what we wanted Jordan Davis to be. This is what we wanted Jordan Davis to be. Yeah. I'm not ready to say he's top 15 because we're talking about the weaknesses, right? But if we're talking about a guy, 12.5 tackles for loss, 7.5 sacks, that is a mammoth, a monster of a man that could play 0, that can play out to 3 at points because he's such a gifted mover and has the penetration skills and the overall athleticism that this young man has. That's what we wanted Jordan Davis to be. That's what people tried to make Jordan Davis, this penetration style mountain. That's what Deone Walker is, man. It is a very, very unique skill set because you don't see guys that move as naturally and as easily as this guy. So yeah, man, he's got a lot of talent to him. There's no doubt about that. Obviously things to work on, but just from the strengths column perspective, gifted mover, gifted athlete for a man his size.
So you brought up Jordan Davis. Look, this might be me getting way ahead of myself, which I love to do early on in summer scouting. I feel way more excited about Walker right now going into the season than I did about Jordan Davis. Oh, great. And I'm not saying that Walker is heads above him, but I feel like Walker is ahead of where Jordan Davis was coming into each of their final years before they enter the NFL draft. And I'm talking specifically about the pass rush, just nuance, the hand usage, the ability to create space for himself. He's got a really good bull rush, but guys his size aren't supposed to be able to swim and spin the way that he can. He can really, really open things up for him and himself. And I think that you give him a couple seasons time, he can have a fully developed hand usage arsenal. Like, where is he working on this stuff that he's already this far along and he's entering his third year as a starter for Kentucky? I think it's his third year.
This will be his third year. Yeah, he'll be a mature junior this year. It's really fascinating, too, because one thing that you love to see about a kid like this is, again, 12.5 tackles for loss, 7.5 sacks. I want those numbers to be in the biggest moments, right? I want them to be in the against the best competition he faced. And he had 2 tackles for loss and 2 sacks against Clemson. He had a sack and a tackle for loss against South Carolina. He's had games, Alabama, he had a tackle for loss. He had 4 tackles for loss against Missouri, who was a heck of a team this past year as well. So, like, he was stacking good performances against the best competition. It's not like he just beat up on Eastern Kentucky and Ball State and Akron. Like, he played against his best. He played at his best against the best opponents on his schedule, which I think is a great thing. But you mentioned, Joe, he's got kind of a little man game a little bit to him, right?
Yeah.
Like, which is why he's so unique. Like, yes, you look at him and you're like, that kid has to be a zero tech. Like, that's Marcus Stroud or John Henderson, like one of those dudes, right? Just a guy that's not going to move off the point of at the point of attack, kind of like Jordan Davis. But you see the quick swim, then you see the arm over, then you see the club rip. Like, he's got a little bit of stuff in his bag. And again, it's not fully polished and it's not all the way there, but the key is that you don't naturally see that from guys that look the way he does, right? You assume something when you look at his body type, when you look him on the field, and that's not what you get, man. He is a very different and unique player for an interior defensive lineman, which is why, like, let's call it what it is, right? I hate this word sometimes because I think it's overused in this space, but he's a rare player, right? From a just
I mean, there's no stretching that. It is overused, but there's no stretching that literally. He's enormous and he moves like he's 6'1" and he's 290 pounds.
It's not the same situation, and Kentucky plays a different defense than what Jordan Davis asked him to use at Georgia, but he just had more tackle for loss and sack production in one season than Jordan Davis had in his entire Georgia career, right? So, like, again, this is a different type of mover, a different type of athlete. He's got a little bit of a little man game, which, as he irons out the finer points of playing the position and maybe, well, we'll get there in a second, some of the things that he needs to improve on, I think that this kid's upside is massive. Like, he could be a top 15 pick in the 2025 NFL draft. He has that upside. I wouldn't project him there right now, but anytime we're talking about a rare potential prospect, as far as skill set wise, a guy's going to be valued heavily as long as he puts it all together.
Weaknesses, they're pretty obvious, but also I think it's very fixable. I had a lot of people when I posted his highlights point this out, and it's like, okay, no duh, the 6'6", 350-pounder has trouble playing low. You could tell that there just needs to be a little bit more of a focus for him on firing out lower. And that stuff's fixable. Like, that stuff is coachable. He's clearly coachable enough to play with a good motor for his size, and for him to have the hand usage that he has, that shows that he has attention to detail. So I think you give him a little bit of time. Yeah, he's going to continue to have reps where he plays super high. It shows up in the run game because sometimes he does get driven out of plays because he's playing too high. But I'm not super worried about the pad level stuff right now, because that's something that I can work on and I can improve, because the mobility stuff is the stuff that you can't coach that he has.
I'm more worried about the body right now is my biggest thing, because I think those things are interrelated. Yeah. I really do, Joe. Like, I don't think he's 348 pounds like he's listed. Right? He's a big dude, and he's got a lot of bad weight on his frame. I am hoping and praying that this offseason has been dedicated to trimming some of that bad weight and replacing it with some solid mass on that frame, because I really do believe that a lack of flexibility, playing low, playing with good pad level, I think that is interrelated to your body composition at times, right? Like, it's harder for a guy that is not in the greatest shape that he possibly can be to play consistently low and with a good center of gravity. So I'm hoping, like, just play at 340 of good weights, right? Like, just play 340 and we're good to go. I don't need this guy to get down to like 330 or 325. I don't need that. I need him, because I guarantee, and again, this is me speculating, I guarantee he was probably in the 360 range last season. Guarantee. Yeah. Like, I don't buy 348. Get down 15, 20 pounds. Just trim it up a little bit, right? Get everything a little tighter, and we're good to go here, man, because he has the natural athleticism where I say he can play with better bends. I don't agree. I don't believe that he is just this lack of flexibility guy. I think that he can play with better bends. I think it comes down to better body composition, better body conditioning, and I think that we're cooking with grease here potentially. It's just about fine-tuning the body type and composition. That'll go a long way for Deone Walker to fulfill his potential, hopefully, in 2024.
Quick projection. I have a top 15.
Can I say this? Can I say this real quick? Number 0 is an awesome number.
Oh, great number. Great number for a defensive tackle.
For an interior defensive lineman. Yes.
Without a doubt. My projection for him, I have a top 15 grade on him. I think that this is a rare player. The coaching, the body composition stuff does come into play. That'll get improved over time, but this is a rare athlete. This is somebody who, if you bring him in, like I think it's Derek Brown, like that is like one of the first guys I think of who, rare player, goes in the top 10. I think is pretty undervalued for how good he's been for the Panthers.
He's been very good. Great run stop.
Yeah, he never gets brought up when we talk about top defensive tackles because he's on a nothing team. But I really think that Walker has all-pro written all over him if he ends up in the right situation.
So I have written in parentheses top 20 upside for Deone Walker, but I just can't put it on him right now. I'm trying to be a little bit more tentative to the big grades that I put on dudes in the preseason. I know that projection is brought in naturally to the summer scouting period, but I am putting a high second on him right now, Joe, with a skyrocket next to his number, right? So I think that this kid can be top 20. No, if the draft was today, I would not be willing to draft him in the top 20.
I would.
I would. Well, that's why you don't build football teams. That's why you don't build football.
I'd get fired as a GM. Man, I'd be winning a Super Bowl. You just
winning a Super Bowl. Hey, man, if this kid can put it together, then I think that he has a chance to be the first interior defensive lineman off the board. I think he is very much in contention. And honestly, I'm not going to tell you the exact number here, but like he's very, very high on my ranking, right? As far as the interior defensive lineman that I have watched so far, and I'm up to 14 interior defensive linemen right now. He is rated very high. One of the few guys that have legit top 50 grades in this class for me. I think the upside is tremendous. And honestly, a early second round grade, depending on how many first round grades I have, is probably a mid to late first round player when all is said and done, right? But like in a vacuum, I think it's an early second round player right now that will most likely make a big ascension if he has a big year in 2024.
BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. Bet online, where the game starts.